you're the co-founder.
I am indeed.
Co-founders of OneTeamGov. I am, as you call it. Where were you when you decided that this initiative was needed? What were you struggling with, or what kind of needs did you see?
I'd moved from policy making in UK government over to digital data and technology, and what I'd perceived was a real lack of empathy between different professions, and the incentives to work across those professions wasn't really there. So what I wanted to do when I set up One Team Government was to give people a space to come together regardless of their profession and their professional background to talk about how to make the world better, broadly speaking. It's as simple as that.
And where are you based now in your daily work?
So I'm head of data for our welfare reform programme in the UK, so I work in a central government ministry.
Great. And you have so much to show us and teach us, so I'll leave the stage to you.
Thank you very much.
This is the clicker that you will need.
Hello everybody. As you'll notice, I don't speak Swedish. So I only really know that I'm at the correct conference because I saw the branding, so it's good that I know that I'm in the right place. I'm here to talk to you about OneTeamGov, which is a public sector reform movement which I helped set up last year. And we characterise ourselves as a community focused on creating radical change in the public sector through practical action. So large seismic shifts to make government better, but by taking small, measurable steps together. That's what we do. Before I tell you about the movement, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. As I just said, I worked in policy making in the UK, specifically in our justice system, for about 3 years at the beginning of my public sector career. Then I moved to working in our parliament, and then I moved into the family of digital data and technology roles about 5 years ago. That's been my career trajectory. And I now am focused on leading large human-focused change programs using the best of technology. So I've had roles like head of digital, head of technology, head of data, those kinds of roles, but that's not how I describe my job. The way I describe my job is to try and make human lives better through technology. As I was moving through my career, particularly going through from different professions, which is quite unusual, what I noticed was there was some really chronic things wrong with government. And as I've gone around different governments looking at their problems, it seems all countries have got similar issues, and they were broadly speaking these. We're not incentivized to work together, was my observation coming out of policy making and going into digital. Can you just put your hands up? How many of you are in policy or some kind of policy role? Quite a few. How many of you in a digital or innovation role? Right, okay, good, thank you. That just helps me see the balance. So when I was in policy making, they hated all the digital people. They all said, digital people over there, they don't understand how policy gets made, they don't understand how to talk to ministers, they don't understand anything, and they're all very young, and they don't look like us. And so I was part of the us, and they were part of the them. Then I went to join the them over there. I went to join the digital community, and they all said, oh, policymakers, they don't understand how the world works. They're all old and very not like us, and we're very different, and we're better. And there was no incentive for any of those groups of people to work together at all. And that seemed very strange to me. Another thing which seemed very strange to me was that, particularly in the policy-making world, there was no perspective on the society that we were working in. So policymakers didn't know how the internet worked. Sort of 25 years into the internet being here, they didn't really think that the internet was part of their job. They certainly didn't think that using technology was part of their job at all, and I found that very strange. But this was the biggest one. There was no real empathy between different bits of government. So policymakers didn't know what digital people did. Digital people didn't know what policymakers did. Neither one knew what operational people did, so they didn't know what the life of a nurse was like, for example, or a teacher, or a job centre manager. And that lack of ability to understand each other and that lack of desire to understand each other meant some really, really awful outcomes for government, such as we made bad decisions, bad policy, And the example that I always give is that I made policy about women offenders, women in prison. And when you are caring for a woman in prison, it's normal to treat her differently to how you treat a male prisoner, because they're more likely to have dependent children and they're less likely to commit violent crime. And that changes the policy. It should do. And it didn't, because we never went to women's prisons and talked to women prisoners. So there was lack of empathy between professions in government, lack of empathy with people using government services on the outside. And the effect of that was the whole of government is very inefficient, very expensive to run, and not focused on making people's lives better. And I wanted to do something about that. So this is what I did. There was no space for these different professions to talk to each other in the UK. So I'd been to policy-making events where policymakers talked to each other about making policy and how great policy-making was. And I went to digital events where digital people talked to each other about how great digital was, and isn't technology great, and digital is brilliant. And there was nowhere for those people to come together. So we just created a really simple event. It was an on-conference, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And that was a space where everyone could come we asked them 2 questions. How do we improve government services? How do we improve the way we work? And that was it. And we got them to break out into groups over the course of a day and talk together about how we make the world better. And people seemed to like it. It's such a simple idea. And they liked it so much that about 2 weeks before that event, which is about a year ago, somebody said, what's the legacy of this event going to be? And I hadn't really thought about it. And actually, it shouldn't have been one event. We wanted to make a movement out of it. And we went through some really simple steps to make that happen. Firstly, we wrote down what we thought good government looked like. And it looked like this. I wrote these down on a train in about 20 minutes. And the way I was able to do that is because, as you'll see, they're just a load of common sense. So work in the open, be positive, take practical action, experiment with your work, be diverse and inclusive, care deeply about citizens. There was no incentive to care in our government. I find very odd. Work across borders and embrace technology. This was my attempt in the fewest possible words to codify what high empathy government looks like and the most connected form of government that I could think about. And these are the principles of One Team Government. The next thing we did was we got online. So this is our website. It's OneTeamGov.uk if you want to look at it. We're also on Twitter at OneTeamGov and on platforms like Medium. And what we did, when we got the principles and a bit of online presence together, we just created some meetups. We have a regular cadence. Every week in 5 UK cities, you can come and talk about how to make government better, how to improve service delivery, and we have large events every year. So this is all incredibly simple stuff. The reason that I think it's important, and why we've learned that it's important since, is because it role models a very different way of government working. So we have an active principle of embracing technology in everything we do. We're helping to prepare government for the networked age. You could call it the information age. You could call it, it's the now. It's the thing with the internet in it, with automation in it, with artificial intelligence and high levels of connectivity. And it's the bit that government is not very good at, is keeping pace with that. Having communities like OneTeamGov, which go across every profession and go across every grade, and are not incentivized to work in silos, we're helping to prepare government to be more networked. We're showing new ways of leading. So OneTeamGov, despite... Oh, this is exciting. I feel like what I'm saying should be sort of slightly grander now. We're showing new ways of leading. So leadership in government is relatively traditional, as I'm sure it is in this country. One Team Government doesn't recognise grade. We don't care what level of the organisation you work in. Everybody's voice is equally weighted. It also tends to be very open and a very vulnerable way of coming together. So at our events and at our meetups, you don't say what grade you come from. You normally don't say what your day job is, but you do say what you want to bring to the movement. You say how you think you can help. You try and be positive about how to make the world a better place. And people at the centre of UK government are taking an interest in this. So OneTeamGov has been asked to comment on the central government leadership statement, the thing that defines what the whole of the civil service in the UK does. We're now being asked to comment on that because of the way that we're leading, non-hierarchical. Democratising change is something I'm very passionate about. I firmly believe that you can't commission innovation. I don't think you can go and say, quick, go and innovate over there, I'll give you lots of money, go and be innovative. I don't think that works. It helps sometimes, particularly the money, but it doesn't work by itself. The way that you create change in large complex organisations like a government is by creating the necessary conditions for that change to happen. And they're things like removing governance, removing professional boundaries, empowering people to do things themselves. And one of the things that we do to democratise change is just tweet about it. We have a concept called a micro-action. It's a tiny thing that anybody can do every day to make government better. And we believe in it so strongly, we tweet about them all the time. So I don't think you create change in a big complex organisation by throwing millions of pounds at people and saying, go and change. I think you do it by just role modelling tiny things. It's going to a different office and visiting another team. It's meeting an end user of a service. It's even buying a cup of tea from somebody who you've never spoken to in your own organisation. They're the ways that you open up government. We're creating space to say unexpected things. Innovation in government has to be unexpected by its nature. You can't innovate in predictable ways, otherwise it's not innovation. Unexpected things happen when you create the conditions for change. And what we give people when we meet up with them every week or we create a big event for them is say, oh, it's okay to say those things that your organisation doesn't approve of. It's okay to be a bit strange and weird, and is it okay to say these things? Yes, it's okay to say these things. Just giving that open space for people to come and innovate together has been really important. And this one I like best. So I'm a bit of a romantic about government. I really passionately believe in public service. And often people are trodden down in government. It's very hard to run a country. It's really hard. And people are de-energised sometimes, and they don't feel that the world can be better. What we found through OneTeamGov is that we've given people hope. We've said, we think the world can be a better place, and we think the world will be a better place. We're optimistic about everything we do. That seems like a kind of soft benefit, but it's not. It's energising, and the energy that you take back into your day jobs creates the momentum for change. That's what we're trying to do. And I'm very excited to say that it's not stopping in the UK. So the UK OneTeamGov movement is just about a year old, as I've said. But as it happens, other governments around the world have become interested in what we do, in our principles and in opening up. You might have heard of one of them. So the first country that got interested was Sweden. Where are the OneTeamGov crew from Sweden? Where are you all? Wave. Can you whoop? Make a noise. There we go. So there is the beginning of OneTeamGov in Sweden. I was privileged to meet a load of them yesterday and privileged to meet even more of them today. And I'll tell you a bit more about how you can get involved in a second. We're also working in Canada. So what we found from bringing different countries into OneTeamGov is very different contexts bring different challenges for change. And it's great going to talk to different governments around the world about what their specific context is, and then bring them back together to create content that we can share with everyone. So we're excited to get Sweden and Canada involved. We're also having the world's, we think, first public sector unconference. Can you put your hand up if you've been to an unconference? Okay, an unconference is just an unstructured conference. So it's a conference where you meet and you create the agenda on the day according to what the needs of the audience are. That's all it is. And we're having the first global one. There's a URL there if you want to take a picture of it. You're welcome to come. It's happening in London on the 16th of July. 42 countries are going to come to that unconference talking about how we make the world better together. 700 people. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And this is the message I'm going to leave you with. If you're tired of waiting for the revolution, start it yourself. I was very tired of waiting for the UK government to get more innovative. I thought I'd try and do something about it myself. If you want to do something about it in your country, as it happens, you have the opportunity to do that on the 1st of September of this year, which I think is the same day that your new government digital agency has been created, I seem to think. So that's a nice day for this to happen. I have no idea what this slide says, it was provided to me. I hope it talks about an unconference happening in Stockholm on the 1st of and talk about how to make the world better together. I'm running out of time, but as it happens, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your time. Do we have any time for questions?
Thank you so much for inspiration and for hope. You're saying you don't need any more money, but if you got some kind of resources, what could scale this initiative, or what could scale the impact of this kind of thinking that you're presenting to us?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. So I think what I would do is probably package up what we've got, package our assets up, and then sponsor events in different countries. I think that there are some really interesting things that challenge every single government in the world, I would have thought, and some things which are context specific. So if I had more resources, I would love to go and discover what's going on in other countries as well.
Anyone here wants to invite Kit over to that team or their environment right away? Stay by the stage, and I think you'll get
Absolutely.
a lot of invitations. And a small token of our appreciation. It's a box of chocolates from Gothenburg.
Wow.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.